it's just surprising to me that there isn't a big tech site, with hundreds of millions of users who is taking any sort of a more free speech and transparent philosophy, because they would win over a whole major segment of the market. I mean, they could, because that's why all of us alternatives are popping up. Like, there is demand for this.
Honestly, it feels like forever since I've done a video on Odyssey, or really anywhere for the most part. Life got busy, everything ended up snowballing into this giant backlog. But now that I'm back, I want to start with something familiar to some of you and hopefully useful to everyone else. So let's get into it. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you the whole history and everything about mines, just more of the experience behind it. I know that was a problem with one of my last videos, so I improved upon it while I was gone. Now, I know the first question most people will end up asking is, what is mines? I never really heard of that site, especially people that aren't on Odysee or really hear no one really talk about it, which is understandable. But if I had to give mines in a summary, or at least some form of reference that you can actually get a grasp on, it'll be closer to what X, Threads, or what's that other site, Blue Sky, I remember? It's kind of like those without an actual algorithm to, I guess, push certain ideas. So for the most part, it's controlled by what you want and what you really actually want to see, instead of having to go by an algorithm that try to guess what you want to see. Unlike most sites nowadays, which mostly are run by either tracking or ads, Mines mainly works because users create value by posting, mainly by commenting, engaging, stuff like that. Just engaging with the site in general, really. Now, over time, your engagement is rewarded with tokens. Now, these tokens aren't like traditional cryptocurrency, but it's more like a reward for engagement, which can be used on multiple things. But for the most part, me explaining it would be a mess, and honestly, I would rather have someone from Minds proper explain it, just to give you a clear explanation of what these tokens do and why they're valuable to most people.
Now, when we're talking about utility tokens, what does that necessarily mean? Well, it means that they're only intended to be used for the platform. They are transferable among other channels, so you can donate to people and do whatever you want, but they cannot be traded on public exchanges. Mines cannot guarantee that they will ever be on public exchanges. So you have to keep that in mind, that there's no 100% guarantee there's really no guarantee at all that you'll ever be able to make money off of your Mines tokens unless you sell them directly to another user. However, one Mine token is worth 1,000 views in boosting, in advertising on the platform internally, meaning that one token is actually worth a great deal, considering you can buy it for 10 cents from another user or 15 cents from Mines themselves. That's pretty amazing compared to other legacy platforms with what you can do for 10 cents. Very, very, very good, or 15 cents.
Now, despite how forward-looking this may sound, this model already supports crowdfunding, revenue sharing, and transparency due to how more open source it is. It's where creators and users help to build into an upward spiral that actually helps the site and the people on it. Now, this is in contrast to other sites that more benefit off the customer rather than actually the site itself. Now, so far, I've been getting into how the site works or how the site works on the internal side. However, I haven't explained the actual community part or what to expect coming into it, which I'll get to, but I need a small PSA on how that actually works, or at least how small sites work when it comes to community as a whole. Smaller sites, for the most part, tend to sit closer to their original purpose or their founder's purpose for creating the site, rather than mainstream platforms, which mostly has a divergence in what they believe in just because of how many people are on the site. So the first people to join tend to be most passionate supporters of these values, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, and this usually affects the reputation of that site. You see this with Kick, you see this with Rumble, you see this even here on Odyssey for the most part. But regardless, you usually see a bit of the original people still there, always, but it's in lesser degree on mainstream sites than on smaller ones. I'm not saying this as a bad thing, actually. actually helps shape what the site wants to be in the future. Hell, YouTube was like this, being more, I guess, homemade is probably the word. And several other sites have been like this, but aren't like this anymore. This is just a natural process that happens over time. Right? But keep in mind that a thriving platform needs more and more users than just its core supporters. This is how you get a more diverse ecosystem that is far and away different from when it started. This is just a natural progression from echo chamber to what it wants to be in the future, which is a large site that actually has diverse users. Otherwise, it might become just an echo chamber where the same people are always on it and just kind of separates into, I guess, two separate factions, but neither of which are actually interesting or you want to be there for it. I think you can see this a bit on X, and you can see this a lot on Blue Sky as well. But I'm not going into details about that since that's another topic for another day. That I'm not the person best for that. So
there's a negative connotation around it, but like, you know, there are plenty of things that you can get radical about that can be very healthy. So, you know, it's not, the goal isn't de-radicalization. I mean, the goal is better dialogue and discourse, but like, we're not out to, you know, social engineer. So I want to kind of make that clear, that there's no like agenda in terms of how we think people should think. However, you know, I think we're trying to increase tolerance for having the hard conversations that are necessary, and being tolerant of extreme speech, because we know that the only way for actual, like, racist speech to change is to engage it.
now, with that clarification, now I can go back to talking about minds and what the community really holds. Minds have been growing slowly over time, gradually evolving its own unique identity. After community is really interesting. While smaller than X and Twitter, well, X, Twitter, Blue Sky, stuff like that, it's far from one-dimensional in itself. Minds feels like a home for people who aren't interested in the mainstream sites, you know, like me, you, really anyone on sites like Rumble, Odyssey, places like that, and value autonomy. It's the kind of value people show, similar to how people view on Odyssey, which is why there's a large Odyssey community there. I can recommend some people, but that's for after the video. I guess with the site being smaller, currently there's more people there for creating content for the love of creating content rather than just for views or for anything actually, I guess, typical that you would find on bigger sites. So for the most part, a lot of the people just kind of speak their own thoughts and just end up being their own person for the most part. So it's almost like a genuine, authentic vibe that you get from, I think, old Facebook, maybe old Instagram. It's really what you see fit. Now, since there's no true recommendations like in the traditional sense, for the most part, a lot of people will have to actually go in and find a topic they like. Maybe it's gaming, maybe it's pets, maybe it's something entirely different. But for the most part, you can actually find it on Minds in some way, shape, or form. And then you just build your feed off of that, and it goes in reverse chronological order, I remember. So you don't have to worry about artificial recommendations. You just have to make it yourself and find creators that you like, or find content that you really enjoy from the site. In conclusion, the pieces are already there. Minds just needs ongoing support. It already has the features to actually keep going and are already different from other sites. I already told you about a few, and I didn't say about a few others, but that's just because I want you to actually explore the site for maybe even 5 minutes. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, but even then, that's already more than enough I can ask for from Minds and from you, personally. And unlike Noise, which ended in the summer, which I hate that happened, but that's a video for next time. I believe Minds really will get the ongoing support that it really wants right now. It just needs to go slowly over time and actually keep on going. As for me, I'll be on Minds too. I'll also put in the comments a list of creators that are also on there from Odyssey. I just prefer Odyssey because I know more people on Odyssey. So I'll send a starter pack of sorts in the comments below. But until next time, which hopefully will be soon, I'll be seeing y'all. Hopefully it's pretty soon.